Have you ever found yourself thinking about how much to share with your children, not just about your health, but about life in general? In the last part, we explored how a well-intentioned comment about health can shift the delicate balance in your relationship, sometimes creating unintended burdens. But health is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. The same principle, mindful sharing, applies across so many areas of life. Whether it's your finances, your personal challenges, or even your dreams, every conversation carries weight. And the art of knowing what to share when and how can make all the difference in building harmony with those we love. Let's revisit Margaret for a moment. Margaret isn't just a retiree with a love for gardening. She's a fiercely independent woman who raised 3 kids on her own after her husband passed away unexpectedly. She's the type who brings cookies to her neighbors and still volunteers at the library. When Margaret first told James about her medical condition, it wasn't because she needed his help. She simply wanted him to know. But James, a high-powered attorney with a family of his own, took her update as a call to action. He started managing her health like one of his cases, turning every interaction into a checklist of do's and don'ts. Over time, Margaret began to feel like she was losing the voice she'd worked so hard to keep throughout her life. What started as a moment of connection became a source of tension. Have you ever had a moment like Margaret's, where your words took on a life of their own, leading to a place you never intended? And then there's Carl, the retired teacher who lives for his weekends fishing on the lake. Carl has always prided himself on being the calm, steady hand in his family. He was the one who fixed the squeaky doors, helped with homework, and taught his kids the value of patience. But when Carl casually mentioned his hearing issues, his daughter's response blindsided him. Her quick shift into problem-solving mode felt dismissive of his autonomy. "Dad, you need this and we'll take care of that," she said, her tone more managerial than compassionate. Carl felt his role as the family's rock slipping away, replaced by a version of himself he didn't recognize. He began retreating from conversations, avoiding topics that might spark another round of unsolicited solutions. Over time, the relationship grew polite but distant, a shadow of the warm connection they once shared. These stories aren't just about health. They're about how we frame our stories and how our children, with the best intentions, interpret them. The lesson here is not to stop sharing, but to consider how much detail, urgency, or vulnerability is truly needed in a given moment. The way we phrase things, the timing of our words, and the context in which they're shared can all shift the dynamics of a conversation. But health isn't the only realm where this plays out. Imagine this. Patricia, a retired accountant, decides to share with her daughter Claire that she's thinking of selling the family home. For Patricia, it's a practical decision. The house is too big, the maintenance too costly, and she dreams of a smaller place near the ocean where she can spend her mornings walking along the shore. But Claire doesn't hear her mother's excitement. Instead, she hears loss. The house Claire grew up in, filled with memories of Christmas mornings and backyard barbecues, is suddenly being taken away. "Mom, you can't sell the house. Where will we all gather for holidays?" Claire protests, her voice laced with panic. Patricia, caught off guard, falters. What she thought was a simple conversation about logistics has now become a charged discussion about family traditions and emotional ties. Over the following weeks, Patricia starts to second-guess herself. She avoids bringing up the house again, worrying it will only upset Claire. The dream of her oceanside cottage begins to feel more like a selfish indulgence than the fresh start she'd envisioned. Meanwhile, Claire grows resentful, feeling like she's being excluded from decisions that affect the whole family. All because the conversation wasn't framed in a way that helped them find common ground. Have you ever had a similar moment, where you shared your plans, only to find they weren't received the way you'd hoped? Let's look at another scenario. George, a widower with a knack for woodworking, starts mentioning his workshop projects during his calls with his son, Alex. For George, these updates are a way of staying connected, sharing his passion for crafting beautiful furniture. But one day, Alex interrupts, "Dad, you're spending so much time on this. Don't you think you should slow down and enjoy retirement? George, taken aback, feels like his son doesn't understand. For George, the workshop isn't just a hobby. It's a sanctuary, his way of staying engaged and creative. But Alex, projecting his own worries about George's age and health, misses the deeper meaning behind his father's updates. Over time, George stops talking about his projects and Alex, unaware of the shift, assumes everything is fine. The unspoken words create a quiet distance between them. These stories highlight a simple truth. Our words carry weight, often more than we realize. Sharing too much too soon or in the wrong way can shift relationships in unintended directions. But the answer isn't silence, it's intentionality. By considering not just what we share, but how and when, we can foster deeper understanding and connection. And this idea doesn't end with conversations about health, homes, or hobbies. In the next section, we'll dive into one of the most sensitive topics of all, finances. How do we talk about money without crossing boundaries or creating misunderstandings? And how can we navigate this often tricky subject while maintaining trust and respect? Let's explore this next. Have you ever sat with your thoughts, wondering why the words you share with your children don't always bring you closer? Maybe you've opened up, hoping for connection, but instead you found a quiet distance, a polite nod, or even a subtle shift in their tone. It's a feeling that many of us know too well. Over the years, as life teaches us its lessons, we gather not only wisdom, but a deep need to pass it on, to share, guide, and connect. Yet, sometimes, the way we share can unintentionally build walls instead of bridges. Before we continue, friends, I kindly ask you to subscribe to my channel. It only takes a second for you, but for me, it's an extra motivation to keep creating videos. I'd also really appreciate a comment. Thank you for your support, and now, let's continue with the story. Let me share a truth that isn't always easy to face. Not every thought, every story, or every piece of advice needs to be shared. The secret to a harmonious relationship often lies in knowing what to say and when to stay silent. This isn't about withholding love or connection. It's about preserving it. Because as much as we love our children and they love us, there's a delicate balance in every relationship, a balance that can be disrupted with just a few words spoken at the wrong time. Think about the dinner table conversations or those casual phone calls with your kids. Have you ever noticed how certain topics, though well-intentioned, seem to shift the mood? A simple mention of your worries, your health, or even your plans can sometimes lead to unintended consequences. Suddenly, you're met with concern that feels like overreach, advice that feels like judgment, or silence that feels like dismissal. It's not because they don't care. It's because the dynamics of parent-child relationships evolve over time. Take health, for instance. It's natural to want to share the details of our well-being with our children. After all, they are our closest confidants, the ones we trust the most. But what if I told you that sharing every detail could sometimes create more harm than good? Imagine this. A mother calls her daughter to share the news of an upcoming surgery. The daughter listens intently, reassures her mom, and promises to check in more often. At first, it feels comforting, but over time, the check-ins become more frequent, the advice more insistent. Are you taking your medication? Did you call the doctor back? Maybe I should come over and take care of things for you. What began as loving concern slowly starts to feel like control. The mother, who once prided herself on her independence, now feels like her autonomy is slipping away. It's not that her daughter means harm. On the contrary, her intentions are rooted in love. But the balance has shifted. The mother begins to withhold small updates about her health, not out of secrecy, but to preserve her sense of freedom and peace. And in doing so, she finds a surprising truth. Sometimes silence is the most profound form of love. Now, let's consider a different scenario. A father, living alone after retirement, decides to confide in his son about a recent health scare, a fainting episode at home. The son, alarmed, responds by immediately insisting on hiring a live-in caregiver. "You can't stay alone anymore," he declares. The father, caught off guard, feels both his independence and his confidence under threat. A conversation meant to bring understanding instead leads to frustration and resistance. Had he approached it differently, perhaps sharing just enough to reassure his son without sounding helpless, he might have avoided the misunderstanding entirely. Have you ever felt like your independence was being questioned, even by those who mean well? It's a subtle but powerful realization that not everything needs to be said out loud. Our children, as much as they love us, can sometimes struggle to see us as individuals outside of our roles as parents. Sharing too much can blur those lines, creating an unintended dependency that neither side truly wants. But this isn't just about health. Let me take you into another scenario, one you might find equally relatable. A woman nearing retirement decides to share with her daughter her plans to sell the family home and downsize to a smaller, more manageable place in another state. She pictures this as an exciting new chapter, a way to explore her freedom. However, her daughter reacts with shock and sadness. "How can you leave? What about the holidays? What about the grandkids?" What the mother sees as a natural step forward is perceived by her daughter as a disruption of their family traditions. The conversation leaves them both feeling misunderstood. It's a reminder that sometimes our choices are best shared as decisions, not open-ended discussions. The mother might have avoided tension by presenting her plans as already decided, focusing on the positives: less maintenance, more travel, and the ability to enjoy life on her terms. This approach can soften the emotional impact, ensuring her independence is preserved while still respecting the relationship. These moments teach us the fine line between connection and conflict. So often, we believe that honesty and openness are the keys to connection. And while that's true in many ways, the real art lies in discerning what to share and what to keep within our hearts. As we explore this together, let me ask you, have you ever shared something with your children only to wish you hadn't? Maybe it was a story from your past, a concern about their life choices, or even a moment of vulnerability about your fears for the future. These are the moments that teach us the delicate balance of words, their power to heal or to harm. But what if the secret to maintaining a strong bond with your children lies in the simplest of actions? Let's explore this next. Together, we'll uncover how the wisdom we've gathered over the years can guide us to navigate these delicate conversations, bringing us closer to the ones we love, without losing ourselves in the process. Let's return to the idea of mindful communication, the art of choosing what to share, when to share it, and how much to say. In the previous sections, we explored how health updates, when shared without careful thought, can unintentionally disrupt the balance in relationships. Finances, though seemingly a separate topic, are another deeply personal area where this principle applies. Money carries with it an emotional weight tied to independence, trust, and family dynamics, making it a delicate subject in parent-child relationships. How we approach these conversations can either strengthen bonds or create unintended rifts. Linda's story is a familiar one. A retired nurse, Linda worked tirelessly throughout her career to build financial stability for her golden years. Her savings represented more than just numbers in a bank account. They were a testament to her resilience, discipline, and foresight. During a casual chat with her daughter, Emily, Linda mentioned her nest egg, hoping it would reassure Emily that she was secure. But Emily, a busy mother balancing work and family, heard something different. Over the following months, she began dropping hints about her family's financial challenges. "You've done so well, Mom," she'd say. "Maybe you could help us with a little boost for Jake's college fund." Linda was caught off guard. She loved her grandson deeply and wanted to help, but the growing frequency of Emily's requests made her feel uneasy. Each conversation chipped away at the pride Linda felt in her independence, turning her hard-earned savings into a source of anxiety. Instead of bringing them closer, the discussions began to create subtle tension. Linda found herself avoiding the topic of money altogether, fearful that even a simple comment could lead to another uncomfortable request. Over time, this silence created distance between them, with neither addressing the unspoken strain. Now consider Mark, a retired carpenter who's always been a pillar of self-reliance. Mark values simplicity and practicality, qualities he's instilled in his son Ryan. When Mark decided to sell a piece of inherited land, he mentioned it to Ryan over lunch, expecting little more than casual interest. But Ryan, who worked in finance, immediately launched into advice mode. "Dad, are you sure you've thought this through? What if you need that money later? Let's look at your retirement accounts." Mark, who'd carefully considered his decision for months, felt his autonomy being questioned. He knew Ryan meant well, but the conversation left him feeling diminished, as though his years of experience counted for nothing. Their once easy rapport now carried a layer of tension. Mark stopped sharing updates about his financial decisions, afraid of sparking another debate. Ryan, meanwhile, wondered why his dad had grown distant, unaware that his well-meaning advice had crossed a line. And then there's Diane, a retired schoolteacher who's always prided herself on being pragmatic. Diane lives alone in the large family home where she raised her children, but as the years pass, the upkeep becomes overwhelming. One evening, she tells her son Ben about her plans to downsize and move to a smaller condo near the ocean. Diane envisions mornings by the shore, reading with her coffee and feeling the salt breeze. But Ben reacts with alarm. "Mom, you can't just sell the house. What about holidays? What about the grandkids? This is our family's legacy." For Diane, the house is a physical burden, a reminder of her life's busyness. For Ben, it's an emotional anchor tied to years of memories. Diane, unprepared for his reaction, begins doubting her decision. Over the following weeks, their conversations grow strained, as though they're speaking two different languages. Diane feels boxed in, while Ben feels excluded from a decision he believes affects the entire family. Neither acknowledges the hurt, allowing it to simmer beneath the surface. But not all financial conversations go awry. Let me share Mary and Jason's story, a reminder of how thoughtful communication can lead to understanding. Mary, a retired librarian, knew she needed help managing her finances as she approached her 80s. She reached out to her son, Jason, explaining that while she was comfortable managing day-to-day expenses, she wanted his guidance on investments. Mary framed the conversation carefully, making it clear she valued his expertise while maintaining her sense of independence. "I've done well so far," she said, "but I'd love your input on how to make the most of what I've saved." Jason, a financial planner, approached the conversation with equal care. He listened to Mary's goals and concerns, offering advice without imposing his own agenda. Together, they created a plan that allowed Mary to feel secure while retaining control over her finances. Their open dialogue brought them closer, strengthening their bond through mutual respect. Mary felt empowered by Jason's support, while Jason gained a deeper appreciation for his mother's resourcefulness. Have you ever had a moment like theirs, where a challenging topic turned into an opportunity for connection? These stories reveal a simple truth. Communication about money is as much about relationships as it is about dollars and cents. Transparency, when handled with care, can foster trust and understanding. But without boundaries and thoughtful framing, it can lead to tension and misunderstanding. So, how do we approach these conversations? First, recognize the emotional weight of financial topics. Sharing your plans or challenges isn't just about the numbers. It's about the meaning behind them. Second, frame discussions in a way that invites collaboration rather than control. Instead of saying, "I need help managing my money," consider saying, "I'd like your perspective on this decision." Small shifts in language can make a big difference in how your words are received. Finally, remember that timing matters. A conversation about finances during a busy holiday dinner might feel rushed or misplaced, while a one-on-one chat over coffee allows space for deeper understanding. Thoughtful timing shows respect for both your needs and your children's capacity to engage. Money, like health, is just one thread in the fabric of our relationships. In the next section, we'll explore another deeply personal topic: the stories of our past, our regrets, our lessons, and the decisions that shaped us. How do we share these stories in ways that strengthen rather than weaken the connections we've built? Let's discover this together. Storytelling is a powerful tool. It connects us, teaches us, and allows us to share pieces of ourselves with the ones we love. But as with any form of communication, the impact of our stories depends on how, when, and why we tell them. Whether we're talking about our health, finances, or the choices we've made, storytelling requires the same mindfulness we've discussed throughout. A well-told story can strengthen relationships and inspire growth, but poorly timed or framed tales may unintentionally create distance. Helen's story reminds us of the fragility of these moments. As a retired school principal, she was used to being the voice of reason and a source of guidance. To her daughter, Sarah, Helen was a role model, a woman who would face life with unshakable confidence. That evening, when Helen decided to share a professional mistake from her past, her intention was clear: to teach Sarah the value of thinking carefully before making decisions. But Sarah, still grappling with her own career insecurities, heard something very different. In her mind, the story shattered the pedestal she'd placed her mother on. What followed was a subtle shift in their dynamic, a distancing that Helen hadn't foreseen. For Sarah, the revelation felt disillusioning. For Helen, it became a source of regret. Frank's experience with his son, Luke, was similarly complicated. Their relationship had always been rooted in shared activities and a mutual respect for practical wisdom. When Frank opened up about a financial misstep, a failed investment that strained the family years ago, he hoped to share a lesson about resilience. But Luke, hearing this for the first time, felt blindsided. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" he asked, his voice tinged with frustration. Frank, sensing the disappointment in his son's tone, realized too late that the story's framing mattered. Instead of strengthening their bond, it left them both feeling uneasy, unsure of how to move past the awkwardness. But storytelling isn't always fraught with challenges. When approached thoughtfully, it can lead to moments of deep connection. Take Joan, for example. As a retired nurse and a natural nurturer, Joan has always been a pillar of wisdom for her granddaughter, Emma. One rainy afternoon, as they sat by the window with tea in hand, Joan shared a story about a time in her 20s when she nearly let fear stop her from pursuing her nursing career. Joan spoke not just of the fear but of the courage she eventually found to step forward, despite her doubts. The story wasn't about regret, it was about growth. Emma, struggling with a decision of her own, found solace in her grandmother's words. That conversation became a turning point for Emma and a cherished memory for Joan, a testament to the power of mindful storytelling. Let's consider another example, one that highlights the transformative potential of these moments. Robert, a retired firefighter, had a complicated relationship with his son, Nathan. Years of working long shifts and navigating the high-stakes nature of his career had left little time for emotional openness. One evening, during a quiet fishing trip, Robert shared a story he'd never told anyone. The time he doubted his ability to save a family from a house fire early in his career. "I froze for a moment," he admitted, "but then I remembered why I was there. I took a breath, trusted my training, and went in." For Robert, this wasn't just a story about heroism. It was about acknowledging his humanity. Nathan, hearing his father's vulnerability for the first time, felt a surge of admiration and connection. "I always thought you were fearless," Nathan said. "It's comforting to know even you have moments of doubt." That evening marked a turning point in their relationship, deepening their understanding of each other and creating a space for honesty that hadn't existed before. These examples reveal the dual nature of storytelling. It can either bridge gaps or widen them. The difference lies in intention, framing, and timing. When we tell stories with humility and purpose, focusing on growth and resilience, they become gifts, insights that inspire rather than overwhelm. But when stories are shared impulsively or without consideration of the listener's perspective, they risk creating confusion or even disappointment. Timing plays an equally crucial role. Consider the setting of each story. Joan's quiet afternoon with Emma allowed space for reflection, while Robert's fishing trip created an atmosphere of trust and openness. These settings, unhurried and intimate, paved the way for meaningful exchanges. In contrast, dropping a heavy revelation in the middle of a hectic day or a family gathering might not land as intended. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to share and to listen when the moment feels right? It's also important to remember that not every story needs to be told. Some experiences are deeply personal, and sharing them might do more harm than good. Mindful storytelling is as much about knowing what to hold back as it is about knowing what to share. Sometimes, the quiet dignity of keeping a story to yourself can speak volumes. But what about those moments when sharing does lead to connection, as in Joan's and Robert's cases? These are reminders that storytelling, when done with care, can be one of the most profound ways to bond with our loved ones. It's not just about recounting events. It's about inviting others into the journey of who we are, what we've learned, and how we've grown. As we reflect on the role of storytelling in our relationships, let's turn our attention to another deeply personal topic: our dreams and fears for the future. How do we share these hopes and concerns without burdening our loved ones? How can we invite support while maintaining our independence? Let's explore this delicate balance together. As we come to the end of this journey together, let's take a moment to reflect on the lessons woven through these stories. Whether it's sharing updates about your health, navigating delicate conversations about finances, or deciding which stories from your past to pass on, one truth stands out. The way we communicate shapes the relationships we hold most dear. It's not just about what we say, it's about how we say it, when we say it, and why. Think of Clara, the retired artist, and her granddaughter, Lily. Clara's decision to share her story about the painting she almost gave up on wasn't just about a lesson in resilience. It was an invitation for Lily to see her struggles in a new light and to understand that even those we admire most face doubts and challenges. That quiet moment in the studio became a lasting memory, strengthening their bond and reminding them both of the beauty in imperfection. Or consider George, who finally pursued his dream of a cross-country RV trip at 72. By sharing his excitement with his son, Chris, George didn't just realize his dream. He expanded it. That shared adventure brought them closer, turning a personal goal into a collective experience filled with laughter, discovery, and memories they'll carry forever. George's openness, framed by his enthusiasm and optimism, showed Chris the joy of embracing life fully, no matter the stage. These stories remind us that mindful communication isn't about holding back or avoiding vulnerability. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing to share in ways that uplift and connect, rather than overwhelm or alienate. The relationships we've nurtured over a lifetime deserve that care, that thoughtfulness. And the beauty of it is that we're never too old to learn or to grow in this area. So, what about you? Is there a conversation you've been hesitating to have, a story you've been waiting to share, or a dream you've kept quietly tucked away? Maybe today is the day to take a small step toward connection. Or maybe it's the day to sit with your thoughts, choosing your words with the care they deserve. Either way, it's never too late to deepen the bonds with the people you love. If something in this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you experienced a moment when a well-chosen word, a thoughtful story, or a vulnerable conversation brought you closer to someone you care about? Share your experience in the comments. We're all learning from each other, and your story might inspire someone else. And if you found this video meaningful, consider joining us for more discussions like this. There's so much to explore about how we can live fully, love deeply, and leave a legacy of wisdom and connection for those we hold dear. Because at the end of the day, our lives are made up of these moments, of words spoken and unspoken, of lessons shared and received, of dreams pursued and memories created. Let's make the most of them together. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to see you in the next chapter.